So I learned to lean on the Lord every single day, every breath, just to help me do the best that I could.
Just working as hard as I can to give them that so that they can experience a closer relationship with Him as well.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where we are talking about spiritual practices that transform our lives. And this is your first time watching. We're glad you're here and want to let you know that this is the fourth or fifth video that we have done in part of a series of spiritual practices where we have talked about testimonies of people experiencing God's Word, experiencing prayer, experiencing rest through the Sabbath, and experiencing detachment. And so if you're interested in those are all available on YouTube and Facebook, and you can go check those out. Today, though, we are talking about the spiritual practice of worship. And if the first thing that comes to your mind when you think worship is music, then hopefully you're in for new kind of insights today. Today we're joined by Martin and Shay. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Thanks for taking the time to be with us. And so we're going to hear a little bit about their stories this morning. And so Shay, I want to start with you. Can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Shay. I've been dancing for like 7 years. I started in 6th grade, and I teach now. I've been teaching for a year. So.
And where do you dance?
Faith in Motion Christian School of Dance.
So you've been doing it about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
When you first started doing dance, was that just something you did for fun? That was a hobby? Your parents wanted you to do it? How'd you get into it?
Yeah, so it was definitely more of a hobby or like something for fun in the beginning, but like as it grew, that changed a little bit.
So over time, as you did it, because Faith in Motion is a Christian dance studio, right? What did dance turn into as you continued to do that?
Yeah, so it definitely became more of like a form of worship as I learned like how I can use the moves that I've been taught, like the different ballet positions. Like those were just kind of like an inventory that I would like choose from to learn how to like execute like dance better in order to be like a form of worship.
So we talk about it being a form of worship and these moves and these things that you put together. See, to me, this is all very foreign. I remember thinking of dance as a form of worship, and in my head, like, yeah, I believe that everything can be glorifying to God, that we can use these things to worship, but I didn't. The experience to me was kind of foreign. I couldn't really wrap my head around it, even though I believed it. As a form of worship for you, can you maybe break down two pieces of that? Like, for you personally, how it's a form of worship, like what that experience is like for you, and then maybe also how you see that blessing, like the people who attend your the events that you guys do.
Yeah. So personally, that it's very like humbling to me to be using the like God-given body that I have to like turn back, like to point my message like back to Him. It's very humbling. Like it's when I perform, it's no longer like, oh, they're like clapping for Shay. Like no, like now they're clapping for like the message I've just told, the like gospel that I've shared. Like that's what I'm doing it for. So that has really humbled me. It's put me in my place. Like it's not all about you anymore. So that was like something really huge for me. But I've seen. So at the end of every recital we do every year, we have an altar call, and I've seen people's lives changed just by the stories that we've told through our different like dances, and we spend all year like working on perfecting them so that in the end they can just like completely point back to Him. You're not sitting there thinking like, oh man, that dancer didn't point her toes. Like we're working so that we can just turn the focus back to Him. And the people in the audience always react very well to that. We always get a lot of like feedback that, well, this like recital has really changed the way that I see love or the way that I have seen worship. Definitely, I've heard a lot of that. So yeah, lives are being changed. So.
Yeah, and I will attest to that actually. If you're watching and you're like me and you're like, I believe that dance can be a form of worship, but I don't understand that. I haven't experienced that. I was that way, and I went to one of Faith in Motion's recitals, the first one I ever went to, and I remember coming away from that thinking, that is the first time I feel like I've really grasped that or experienced that and said, yeah, this was a beautiful, God-glorifying event. So that was really cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. We're going to come back to you in a second. So Martin, welcome. Let's talk about your stuff real quick. So real quick, set up for us who you are, what do you do?
Sure. I'm a professor and dean at the Indiana Wesleyan University. I'm the dean of the School of Health Sciences.
Awesome. So you're not a dancer. Don't
Well,
dance.
interestingly,
No.
interestingly,
Going off
yeah.
script.
So I'll tell you, I took dance from kindergarten through 6th grade.
Oh.
And I performed, and it was anything but worship for me. So, but I have 3 older sisters, and each of them have had similar experiences, and I've seen what they can do on stage, and it's just a beautiful thing with worship. So, yeah, kudos to you.
Thanks.
So you are a professor. You've got your doctorate in.
So, yeah, my PhD is in exercise and sports science, and my area was motor learning and control. So I studied quality of movement. So, like, I could put markers on you and look at the mathematical derivatives of your movement and look at how smooth and beautiful they are.
Mathematical derivatives of the movement.
Yeah.
That's great. Great application for the people always asking, when will I ever use this math anywhere in life? Check it out. Check out what Martin's doing. Can you talk a little bit about how over the course of learning in general, not specifically the stuff you do yet, we'll get to that, but learning in general, just growing in knowledge, growing in wisdom, understanding, application of these principles, how that has shaped you spiritually, or what it's taught you about God, taught you about yourself?
Well, I think that all of our gifts that we have are directly a blessing from God, whether it be dancing or whatever it is. And there's a period in my life when I realized that my mind was opening up, because I was never a really good student at all growing up. Horrible. I did not enjoy school at all. And then in my sophomore year of college, which you're about to be, my mind started to be piqued about academia. And then when I got my PhD, my mind, I became a different person. My mind just opened up. Yes, and that was, I realized that was a gift from God. A lot of things were happening in my life at that point too. I was married and I started a family, and that all played into it also.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And so as you have now been a professor, you've done research, you put these things into practice, how are you seeing that? How does that play out as an act of daily worship, or how's that shaping you spiritually now as you put those things into practice?
Yeah, so early on, I'll give you a little insight into a professor's life.
Sure.
The first few number of years, 2 or 3 years, are just brutal because you're like a page in front of the students, right? And you're just trying to learn this stuff and teach it and do well. I mean, a PhD, you are taught how to become an independent researcher. It may or may not be in the area that you end up teaching in. Right, so I learned to lean on the Lord every single day, every breath, just to help me do the best that I could. And through research, I've been a researcher since I got my PhD in '96, right? So I've been doing research since then, and helping to bless my students and teaching them about the research process. And learning about the author of the universe and the universal laws. And I believe that God, because He's the author of the universe and knows everything, through research we can discover His truth in whatever area it might be.
Right.
And it's like these presents that the Lord wrapped up for us, and through research we can open them up and find just a little window of truth in there. And it's just a great thing, and to involve students in that process and to see them catch the passion for it is just great, and it's sort of a way of communicating with the Lord that way too.
That was one of the things in college, when some of the math classes I took, which I never understood real well, I struggled through them, but that conversation of, is math created or discovered? And recognizing that we are effectively discovering or establishing a set of man-made rules, but it's just to describe what God, the truth that is already God's, right?
Yeah. So I have a really good friend. He actually helped me write some code for my experimentation for my PhD back in State College, Penn State. And he worked for what is called in the Water Tunnel, which is a part of the Department of Defense. And he wrote code for anti-torpedo torpedoes.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So torpedoes that
Everybody
went
following
after
along? Okay, good.
went after the ones that were shot towards you. And like he would come back with a suntan and like, where'd you go? Oh, I can't say. Anyway, he was brilliant, and early on in his life, he was maybe a bit wayward, right? Visiting the bars and just had kind of a rough life. But he was so brilliant with math that he discovered God through math.
I love that.
And fell in love with the Lord and became a sold-out Christian. Yeah, just a great guy. And I only knew him as a Christian. He was in one of my small groups and went to my church. And yeah, it was
That's
really
wild.
great.
That
That spoke to me. Wow.
So again, if you're watching, you're like, when am I ever going to use math? What's the good? Hey, people are getting saved through
Yeah.
math. So true story. So yeah, I love that idea that all truth is God's truth. And so if we look for it, there are ways that all this points towards God, has potential to glorify the Creator, has potential to be used in ministry, redeemed, purposed for, good, redeeming things in life. All right, Shay, we're going to come back to you now, because you have moved beyond student, you are now teaching at Faith in Motion, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how, in teaching and sharing that passion for dance and pouring into others now, how God is using that as kind of a next phase of worship?
Yeah, so when I was just dancing, it was, like I said, it was like humbling. So I had kind of learned that it wasn't like about me anymore. But now in like the teaching position, I've learned like, okay, it's not just only not about me, but now it's like about them as well. Like I need to teach my students how they can like gain that sense of like humility as well. Like they can learn how to like worship Him as effectively as like I can teach them. Like just working as hard as I can to give them that so that they can experience a closer relationship with Him as well.
Awesome. And this, I'm sure, like seeing them have those moments of getting it, having that understanding of, oh, I can use this thing that I'm passionate about already to worship God. I'm sure that's rewarding and brings joy to you in many ways. Yeah, that's great. And so, one more follow-up question then, I think. Come back to these spiritual practices that transform our lives. If you were to look back then at the last 7 or so years and how dance has shaped your life or the way it's changed or your understanding of it has changed, how has all of that process shaped you spiritually, looking about where you were when you started to today? What do you want to say about that?
Yeah, so I've definitely developed a closer relationship with Christ and just have desired to know Him more because you want to know the person intimately that you're worshiping. So as I have like learned more dance and grown into the teaching position, like all of that has just been like I've just really wanted to like learn to understand who God is better. So that's just been like a really, really great experience for me. But it's also made me so much more joyful because I don't know if everyone else feels this way, but I love just like dancing because it's so joyful. Like when people are happy, sometimes people who don't dance are just like, woo, they like they just get excited. Like you just move your body. And so like dancing is joyful. It's like fun. And to be able to do something that's that fun, like to glorify Him, like that's just such a like joyful experience.
Absolutely. And I love all of that because I think so many times we do ourselves a disservice by only focusing on worship as music and generally kind of saying we're going to worship now, so let's sing some songs, which is absolutely, it's a valid form of worship. It's great, but then we maybe don't provide people the opportunity to expand and understand that they can use these other gifts for worship. And anything we do really has the potential to be a form of worship if we do it with the right spirit for the right reasons. All right, Martin, you had shared a little bit with me in a conversation about how God's in turn using the research, the things you were doing, to also bless others in a completely different way than teaching them dance, something different. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. So I've had the great opportunity to do research throughout the past 25 years, and I've had some success in publishing research. So what happens when you publish research is that people from around the world will read it. Mm-hmm. And so I'll get notifications on one of my, it's called ResearchGate, and it connects with other researchers. It's like LinkedIn for researchers. Okay. And so people from around the world, if they can go to your page and check out your area. And so I'll get notifications. I get people read like from Singapore or from Brazil or anywhere in the world. Also, you can also keep track of like who's reading your stuff and who is citing your stuff. So they'll actually do research and then will cite your research. And it's a way that how powerful it is it's being the hands and feet of Jesus in a way, mm-hmm. in that you can help inform how other people think about how to treat people. So what I didn't mention earlier is that I'm an occupational therapist also. Okay. And so I do research in occupational therapy with human movement. And people from around the world can read your material, your research, that largely was collaborative efforts with students that I've done. So they have a piece of it too. And it informs people like in Russia will read your thing, or actually in Iran. I've had a number of people from Iran.
That's great.
And so to have a way to help bless humanity through your research is just an awesome thing. And I know all the glory goes to God. It's not me. I'm a simple hayseed from Western Pennsylvania, you know. Could be like a dog with a bone, and that's what got me through mm-hmm. my doctoral work. Mm-hmm. But the Lord used my simple mind to bless other people around the world, and my students are a part of that. Yeah. So it's been a great ride.
Those are both beautiful examples then of how when we are doing what God has given us the capacity to do, and doing it with all our hearts, as the Bible tells us, do whatever you do it with all your heart, do it unto the Lord, not unto men. He can take that, he blesses it, he uses it, he redeems it in ways that we even couldn't anticipate, ways that are bigger than ourselves. Who knows what the people in Iran take from this, or they look up Martin Rice and like, who is this guy? What's he about? Who knows where the girls that Shay's teaching dance to, where they take that and the multiplicative effect of investing in other people, and all through, just driven by the simple, I want to dance and use this to glorify God. I like doing research. It intrigues me. It's interesting. I want to do this with all my heart and glorify God with it. And so really, I want to jump in and talk about, like, that applies to whatever it is that you do. We talk about worship in song, but now we've got worship in dance. We've got worship through research. And so if you are a construction worker that builds houses, well, build the best house you can and work with the guys that you're working with and teach them the skills you have and share that passion with them. Whatever we're doing, we have the opportunity to do it with all of our hearts and glorify God, and that can be an act of worship. Is there anything else you guys want to add to this conversation before we wrap up?
It's great to get to know you.
Yeah.
We've learned all kinds of things about both of you. We've learned that Martin is a world-class dancer in his own right.
Oh my God.
It's been so good. So thank you guys for joining us. And again, I just want to put that challenge out there if you have been limited in your understanding of what it means to worship God, and you've been thinking, well, I don't play guitar, I don't play drums, I can't sing, and therefore I can't really participate in worship the same way other people can. You have opportunities, you have places that you have been put by God where you have an opportunity to worship Him. Whatever it is, whatever job you are in, whatever neighborhood you're in, there are ways that you can glorify God with what you have already been given. And hopefully you've been given just a little bit of a taste of that today in hearing Shay's testimony and hearing Martin's testimony. So thanks so much for joining us today. God bless.